Hi, we did it. It's always a
Yes.
little,
Yeah.
yeah.
Always
Um,
a few tricks to kind of pull off here, but I'm so glad to, get to know your community here, Sarah. What a treat. What a treat.
yeah, I'm excited too. I'm excited to have you. Excited to show you off to the world. Do you want to, should we wait until 4 or do you want to, or I can start doing your introduction and we can get going? We have a couple people here.
Yeah, I mean, I would also love to hear who's here. Sometimes that's fun before we get started.
Yeah, right now, I think it's you and me and I can't read very well. Jason Von Stein, um, who is a friend of mine. Yeah.
Awesome. Hi, Jason.
Um,
Too. I see a Claire too.
oh,
Claire,
you do? Okay. I didn't see that. Okay.
nice.
Awesome. Yeah, we will. So why don't I start by introducing Vanessa Word just while people kind of find us live. Um, so Vanessa is my parenting coach. That's the most important part. I feel like she's amazing. She, I would say, saved us from sort of post-COVID craziness. And my little one and I have been having a much more harmonious life since Vanessa came into the picture. Um, Vanessa has 15 years of classroom experience in Montessori. She has done a ton of research at Berkeley on resilience and motivation in kids. Her goal is really to just help parents um, come with resilience and calmness to build harmony, help deal with sibling rivalry, motivation, all those kinds of things. Anything else you want to add, Vanessa, before we jump in?
Well, sure. I mean, sometimes when we hear the word parenting coach, immediately it's like, oh, so I'm doing something wrong. And I guess what I want, what I just want to put out there, like straight away, is that it's not about, the right parenting strategy, or one perfect, like being a perfect parent or anything like that. And single moms, I know, I mean, I was raised by a single mom. I work with single moms like Sarah and other big-hearted parents, and it's more about figuring out like the kind of parent that our kid needs us to be right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
Right.
and and so we can shift the paradigm a bit around like doing things the right way instead of doing finding our way is more what the
Right.
journey is all about. So yeah, and I'm just so thrilled to be here to support you all today.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and maybe we can dive into that more when you say like trying to figure out how to show up for your kid in the right way, kind of in that moment. Can you give an example of that?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's say you made a request of your child and you're getting some pushback. I mean, we can all relate to that,
Mhm.
right? um, yeah, yeah, and kind of like reading what's happening there. Like, could it be that they're hungry, angry, lonely, tired? That HALT acronym is for
Mhm.
something there. Um, could it be that they're seeking attention or trying to have more power in the situation? And is there a way we can fill up their sort of attention cup or give them choices and influence to have more power? Sometimes we're leaning in and looking at like, have we really set up the day or the routine or the limits and like
Mhm.
expectations enough to set us all up for success so that it doesn't just feel like you're coming in with this idea that your child can then push back on. So there's all these different ways that we can kind of read what's going
Right.
on and adjust. So it's sometimes not even just being like knowing what to do, becoming the parent that your child needs you to be. Um, in the big picture, it can be even like moment to moment different. like, like I know
Right.
it's heating up a lot of places, getting hot. And I swear, like, guiding children when they just came off of a hot yard, because I spent 15 years in the classroom and have two stepchildren and a 7 year
Right.
old in my life. If they just got, they were just under the hot sun, like my expectations need to be adjusted. right? Like,
Uh-huh.
yeah, for example. So even moment to moment, we're
Important.
kind of like tuning in and adjusting and shifting. Yeah.
Nice. I love that. Yes. So we have a couple more people who've joined us. Welcome, Single Mom by Choice, Amorous. I think those are the two that I can see right now. I really can't see very well without my glasses, and the print is very small. Um,
Oh, sure.
so
Well, I would love to know a little bit about folks if they want to come in. I know there's a little wave, Amers. I love that. Like, just let me know maybe where you're tuning in from and how old your kids are. Let us both know, and then we can always like kind of tailor what we chat about today, with you in mind. So that'd be fun if you would let us know
yeah,
where you
yeah, that's
are.
great. And I know some of these people may still even be thinking about becoming parents. So I know we talked a little bit about kind of like setting yourself up in the best way possible, so that you can start from the very beginning, not having bad habits. But why don't we jump into the topic, which is 3 ways to anchor your kids into activities so that you can get your time back. And I feel like
Yeah.
part of the reason this topic came up was actually in our last coaching session. I was explaining how I'm a working mom, oftentimes in the afternoons. My kid gets home from school. Thank God he's in school now. But when he gets home from school, I, often need to work and I cannot be interrupted, especially like if I'm doing something like this right now. I don't always have childcare. And so I end up sticking him in front of the TV. So what other options do we have, Vanessa? And how do we, set them up for success?
Yeah. Uh, I have so many more than three ideas, but I'll give you my top three. Do
Okay.
have you in mind, Sarah, but I want you to know, like, this is something that, I've worked in preschools. I've been around toddlers and, preschoolers as well as elementary age. So I'm going to try to pick the ones that kind of apply to everybody.
Okay.
Um, so I always, yeah. So I always like to go with the flow of of a child's natural motivation or natural sort of attention that they
Mm,
have, like capacity they have, to sort of be with an activity for a while. And this always helped, of course, when I was in a classroom and I had 24, 36, or 48 kids that I was supposed to be anchoring
48.
activity. Yeah, 48. Anchoring into activities. Not only that, we were not do it all at the same time kind of format. It was everybody had their own
Mm,
individual learning activities in a Montessori. So I was there, you can imagine, trying to find activities that each child could like get captured by, feel successful at, and really focus and have a productive time at school. Well, starting with what kids are naturally interested in is
mm,
always going to be more of a win than a lose. Yeah. Because if you're trying to convince a kid to get into something they're just not into, like you're already creating a little bit of an uphill battle.
mhm.
And so I actually challenge everybody right now to have like a go-to, like even grab like a little index card or a post-it note or something and just write down like, and I want you to really think like, what are the things that my child will do and they will get lost in that activity? Where like time
Mm,
just passes. Even think of the ones that are really hard to pull your kid out of when they're
mhm,
already, once they've started. I know for my daughter, it had anything to do with design. She loved anything having to do with color pens out, color
uh,
coding, or like, going over making little designs. Like once she got in that zone, hours could pass and she wouldn't even
uh-huh,
know.
right.
So we call it a flow state. So where have you seen your child like just in a flow state, just not even paying attention to, and they might even tune you out when you're trying to get them to do something. They
Uh-huh.
might even have a tantrum when you tell them it like that hard line of it's time to put this thing away. And
Mhm.
yeah, so Sarah, I can know like Legos has come up as something that was something that you can kind of send your guy to where he can really
Yes,
calm down and kind of get into that
yes.
flow. Yeah.
Yeah, and costume design. He says he can do anything with duct tape and we'll take a roll of duct tape and start cutting up clothes and putting them back together in different ways and do not interrupt him when he is doing that.
Ah, so good. Well, so everybody listening, and even for you, Sarah, I want you to think like this is going to be an example. So if you know, like creating things, taking things apart, putting them back together. So absolutely seen some of my single parent clients have like a bin or a place where they collect those things and they save them for those special times
Okay.
that you really do
Mhm.
need to like you take it out and it's novel. Okay. So it's not out all the time. So
Right.
that when you transition them into, hey, mom's got to step away for her 3 meetings this afternoon, which I know happens, Sarah, right? And all the single moms who have anything else they're juggling, of course, will want to be able to step away. You can put the supplies somewhere and have it be like the special bin that comes out for those occasions. So Sarah, I could see you getting like 2 different colors of duct tape that maybe he hasn't seen before.
Right.
Thing like some shirts that you are happy for him to take apart and put back together, but you don't tell him about them until that
Right.
time you really need it. Then you've got
Hmm.
this like special stash that you can pull out. So that could be a fun way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. I love that.
Yeah. And I guess if anybody has an idea to put in the comments, we always love seeing comments like and sharing
True.
some ideas, right? Um,
Yes.
Yeah. So start with high interest activities, make it kind of novel, maybe create a little like bin, like
Hmm.
a special stash that you take out just for that occasion you save it up for. Um,
Hmm.
so that sometimes we know about that, but we sometimes forget like how the power of that, like how they can go,
Right.
ooh, and then they're good. They're good. They're like good for an hour, or maybe if they're really young, maybe 20 minutes. And that still is like precious. It's like
Right.
20 whole minutes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's one of them. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And do you have, yeah, can we hear number two?
Absolutely. Okay. So this one is a little bit like we're taking a step up into leadership where we're like thinking ahead more, okay?
Hmm.
More than the bin. And this is what I work with all my clients, Sarah. We've worked on this before too. Having routines that really run smoothly takes some time,
Hmm.
right? You gotta plan it, get the kids on board with it, maybe even practice it, give heads up. And so when we're in our design of our routine, like getting into the habit of building in some time where you get to step away and the child's going to be anchored in their activity. And
Hmm.
oftentimes we think of it more about like meeting the kids' needs and we forget about ourselves. Yeah, it's
Hmm.
not so right. So we are still going to get our kids out the door. We're still going to get them cleaned up and back and into bed. But something we want to build into our routines is this idea of, I like to call it sort of like either co-working time where like they've got their work and you've got
Hmm.
your work. If you've got school age kids, that might be a time that they do some academics. Um, or it could just be you with you and me with me time, you know?
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah. And if we build it into the routine, then it becomes something that's expected. So, and for littles, like you guys with your 18 months to 2.5, I mean, often nap time is that. But then
Uh-huh.
I want you to know that you're going to need to, if you want to keep that tradition of an afternoon break where the kids are doing their thing and you're doing yours, you're going
Mm.
to want to build in a quiet hour.
Right.
Yeah, a quiet hour. Yeah. So
Nice.
building it into the routine. So the quiet hour can be so helpful. I have a client who had at the time 2 and 4.5-year-olds, 2 girls, and her 4.5-year-old had stopped taking naps. So then she really felt she was alone with the kids all day, and
Hmm.
she just felt like she didn't get a break all day long because while the little one's napping, her 4.5 still up,
Right.
and so we worked on building in some quiet time. And so
Hmm.
it took a couple weeks and even a couple months to really get it down. But once they got there, where her older daughter knew that at this time you go into your room, you find something quiet activity to do, and until the clock says, three
Hmm.
3-0, you stay in your room doing something that's a quiet activity. It was like a revelation for her. She's like, Vanessa,
Yeah.
I've got like an hour and a half back of my day every day now that I did
Wow.
this. And it wasn't easy, but it was so worth it. So
Yeah.
building it in, even if your child
Hmm.
isn't napping, or during a time of day where they won't nap, but you can build in some kind of routine where the expectation is they're going to be settled into their thing and you're going to be able to go
Right.
take care of whatever you need to take care of. Yeah.
Right. I love it. I know. Can we work on my next session on how to do that routine?
Yes. Yes, yes, of course we can, Sarah. I love that this topic is so juicy for you too. This is so fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Amaris is asking, I'm still in the thinking stage, but I'm wondering how would this work if you had an infant? So I think kind of to the question of like, how do you, I feel like it's probably like starting with those good habits really early on.
Yeah.
but maybe you could say some more around what you would
Sure.
start to think
Right.
of, like when your kids are really young.
Yeah, absolutely. So, a lot of times, there are different schools of thought around sleep training and sort of the like routine training with babies. And so, I always say
Mhm.
work with your pediatrician. Make sure that you're
Mhm.
like aligning with whatever it seems to be appearing. Like, for example, some babies need to put on weight, so you might have a different feeding schedule than another mom and baby would. So, I always say check in
Right.
with your pediatrician. Um, However, in terms of habits, I think it's really more of like how we are, like our mindset around it. Because
Mm.
I think it's really easy for us to switch completely to always being on all the time with infant.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and having this expectation that we can accomplish that as if it's like our duty.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so important to go into, that especially single motherhood, knowing that it cannot be just you all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So single doesn't mean alone.
Right.
Yeah. So one of the
Yeah.
things we can do from the very right now, as even you're just exploring or thinking about, is start building your community in your village.
Mm-hmm.
And consider what it might be like to maybe like either you could go as far as co-housing, which would be like all the way up to the biggest form of creating community with another single mom by choice or some
Yeah.
in your world. Actually, the 7-year-old in my house is in my household because her single mom moved in. That's
Oh,
how.
cool.
So we're co-housing, even though I'm not the primary caregiver. I'm in the community with her, so she doesn't have to do it all on her
Nice.
own. Yeah.
Nice.
So there's ways, like, and it could be in small ways, just starting to reach out to your community, being like, look, I'm about to embark on a really bold journey here. And I want to know that, we can build in time where like, you can come and just do the chores with me, or, like a weekly hangout
Right.
where, I get to have some
Mm-hmm.
company and maybe you hold the baby while I do the dishes. And, I
Yeah.
showed up yeah. And we don't realize how much people like miss baby time. Like I have friends who are moms who are like,
So true.
would love to hold a baby, like even if it's just an hour, it would just be like
Yeah.
they miss that time. And so we can underestimate how much people want to show up for us. So
Mm-hmm.
that's
It's
kind of
true.
the mindset habit that I would put out there as something that people
Yeah.
could be cultivating
Yeah.
now.
And then
Yeah.
something you said made me think, like when you said like you can't be on for your kid all the time. So, and I know that like your training, a lot of it's in like Montessori where they really value and think about independence.
That's right.
Um, so I'm wondering, even like when your baby's really young, are there ways to like start to build, I know that maybe it dovetails into like attachment styles and theories around that, but are there ways to kind of even from like infant stage, like you take a shower and leave them on a mat with something interesting and super safe, like before they can roll? Or are there things like that that you would start to kind of, um, yeah, build in as routines from a very young age?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that it's really important for a baby to have experiences entertaining themselves. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And even if there is a little discomfort there, discomfort and a little mild crying is not the same as like feeling abandoned. And I think we can,
Mm-hmm.
kind of overreact even to the baby
Mm-hmm.
signals.
Uh-huh.
So knowing that there's like a wide range and getting to tune in to those different kinds of signs of distress,
Mm-hmm.
where there's just I'm uncomfortable and I'm trying to figure this out, to like I need you to pick me up, and there's some
Right.
lot in between. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so I think being willing to give baby the opportunity to experience some of the discomfort and figuring it out in small episodes, and then stretching those
Right.
over time is definitely one of the ways we can help them build up that tolerance for self-management at the very
Right.
early age, for sure.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
So I cut you off from number three, like the third
Oh,
strategy that we got sidetracked, but that's okay. It's
oh,
all
not at all. That was a great, totally related and part of it for sure. I feel like this is one where sometimes we are in those of you who are in it with Sarah, like, you know, you've got the baby here already, the kid, the toddler, the preschooler, or the elementary age child, and you're already single parenting. Something you'll notice yourself do is, like, at a certain point, you can get, like, you can find your kids' bids for connection almost overwhelming, and just kind of have this moment of like, I said, no, I'm not available. Like, go over there and do that thing, you know, that you said you would, right? And I know, because I was turned away by my single mom. I see it happening in my household, because there's just sort of only so much of that, you know, constant like asking that you can kind of handle. And so what can be really helpful to set up is sort of a signal, or like a cue that helps the kids recognize when you are available and when you're not available. And that can be a lot of different things. Older child, it could be something as simple as a closed door. I've even seen parents put, this is really cute, but they put like a little sign on their door, and they have like red, orange, and yellow, or like red, yellow, green. Green is like, the door's closed, but come on in. Yellow's like, wait and ask yourself, you know, like, is this important? And red is like, find somebody else, like call grandma or something, you know what I mean? Like, you know, and so there's like, obviously with younger kids, there's different, you know, you have to scale that down. One of the things I had several of my clients did during this whole pandemic, where they were working at home, and it was really confusing, to be frank, for the preschoolers and toddlers, because they're like, well, you're here, how come you're not interacting with me? Because they were used to weekend and evening mom, or weekend and evening dad, right? Like, you know, weekend evening caregiver. And that person's usually much more like interested in connecting, because you've been away from each other. And so they started to do things like put on a hat, put on a different like hat. So here's an example, right? Being like, you know, red for like stop. You could just be like, you know, and you talk about what the hat means. You know, you're just like, red means stop, right? Red means like I'm focused, right? So if you're doing some desk work, if you're like Sarah and you do work where you're on camera, you may not want a big red hat on, but you could have something. Yeah, maybe I could see you rocking that hat, Sarah. But maybe, but maybe you have something that's visual in the environment that really shows it. And quite frankly, with a toddler, sometimes it's a little gate. It's a little gate, and when the gate's closed, yeah, it's like, you know, that means we need to wait on the other side of the gate. And it takes the time to train, or to explain and train your children about what does this mean, and maybe even practice it together a few times. Oh, let's walk and see. Like, you can put a bear where you usually sit, and if the bear has the hat on, you can like walk up to the bear and be like, oh, let's see, does the bear have a hat or no hat? And they could be like, hat. And they're like, oh, we need to go back to our toys, you know, go back to our toys. And then we can come up another time and be like, does bear have hat or no hat? And it's like, no hat. And we go, okay, yay, let's go say hi to bear, you know, and you can actually practice it. It's amazing. That combined with, and this is like a top teacher tip, by the way. So because I've had to be like in a room with 24 kids, I couldn't possibly give every kid my attention when they want it. Right? Like, yeah. And when I don't have this set up, it's so obvious, because there are like kids like kind of all over me trying to get something from me. Yeah, like I even had my aunt came and observed the first week of school, where we were just establishing some ground rules, and she goes, Vanessa, I could never do that. That looks so overwhelming. Like, they want you. I'm like, yeah, they're like little zombies trying to eat my brain. Like, they just want me, you know, they're trying to take the me or something. And I was just like, yeah, but wait, you should come back in, you know, week 10 and see where we've gotten. And the thing that I introduced to them, besides like these cues of like available, not available, is an interruption ritual. Okay. Yeah. So, and this is yeah, it's a real thing. Okay. So we used to call like, how do you politely interrupt someone, or how do you politely get their attention? And then we would just redirect them back to the tool, whatever it was. So here's an example. They come, if they see that you are focusing at your desk, and there's, even with no hat on or no like red light or whatever, they come up, and instead of being like, mom, right, mom, or whatever, they can come up and put their hand on your shoulder. And the expectation is that they're going to wait, and that you're going to acknowledge them by putting your hand on their hand, and maybe going like this to remind them. and then finish whatever it is you're finishing, and then say, hi honey, how can I help? What's up? Oh my gosh, that pause is so sanity making.
Mm-hmm.
Because part of what we can experience is like constant interruption and constant like getting pulled away, or having to turn away and turn
Right.
away. Yeah, so you can see how all these things kind of build to the possibility of actually being able to step away when you have high interest activities that are novel, that maybe you have like a secret stash, when you take the time to preview it for them and build the time into the routine. And
Yeah.
then when you establish some way of like having sort of your own little family code for like when you're available and how to interrupt. So those are my top 3 tips. There's more, but that's
Awesome.
like what I want everyone to have today.
That's awesome. I love it. It's so helpful.
Oh,
Um,
I'm so glad.
yeah, it's really great. Really, really useful. So tell me, so obviously I've been working with you. I think you're amazing, but I had this feeling that I read all these parenting books, that I like knew what to do. Um, and and then pandemic hit and trauma happened and my mom died and all sorts of craziness. And then all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, things are not going great here.
Right.
And now I see like, oh my God, everyone should have a parenting coach from like so early on, even if there's like nothing going wrong.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about sort of like your thoughts on working with someone like you, or what kind of resources people should like pull in, um,
Yeah.
and why and when?
Oh, absolutely. So I feel like the role of a parenting coach is to help you when the rubber hits the road, because
Hmm.
there's like reading the books and hearing about good ideas and getting that sort of knowledge is just step one.
Hmm.
But actually like going live with it and being able to remember or even discern like which tool to use when, or which strategy to use when. And
Right.
then also the unique dynamic of you and your child's particular needs based on their age, their stage, their temperament, their personality and everything. And then on top of that, there's life, like, going through, the different things you mentioned in this previous year and all of us have been through. It just is so much more dynamic than like a chapter in a book can serve. And I
Right.
think what I hear reflected back is that I always had an awareness of the tools, an awareness of these strategies, several of the ones that I help folks with.
Right.
Sarah, you knew that routines were important, but it was something about getting to talk it through with a thought partner who has also
Hmm.
served the age of your child, for 10 years, for a decade. We kind of like got to kind of lightning fast get that done and get it established. And
Right.
that's where when I say people find me not necessarily because they're in crisis always, although that does happen,
Mhm.
um, but also because they just have the sense that they keep feeling like almost like disappointed that like they didn't remember the great strategy, or they didn't remember the great tool, or they
Hmm.
tried it and it didn't work, and they just need to get kind of over that, right? Like they already know that there's
Right.
these great tools and strategies. They're just not sure how to actually make them work for themselves and their kids. And that's where
Yeah.
parenting coaching comes in. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about your programs, that you
Oh,
do
sure.
offer?
Yeah. So I do have a private practice. I have only, and Sarah's one of them. I have 5 private clients at a time, and I do a private coaching intensive where I work with my clients twice a month. For 6 months. And so that's one way that folks work with me. A really important thing that I've created that I want you to know about is a Family Foundations Immersion, which is a year-long program where parents get to kind of travel together a year and get monthly Q&As that are live, really connect with each other and with the tools and strategies. And that way, hold yourself kind of accountable to your goals, because you keep
Hmm.
coming to the trainings, to the community, and growing together. And that I have a cohort that starts in July that we're actually like opening up an early bird kind of special that just like that actually ends today. If anybody wants to talk to me, they should talk to me today. And then we'll have a few spots. We'll still have a few spots left probably in the next week or two for folks who want to join that. And it gives us an opportunity to do things like get your routines running smoothly. Figure out what are the most important rules and expectations and boundaries to really like set so that they stick, right? Setting limits
Right.
that stick. Um, like Sarah and I have been jamming on how to offer choices, in the moment, so that it doesn't just immediately become a power struggle of like, I told you what to do and you don't want to do it, and it's like, oh great, now what? Yeah, we're here to shift to choices and things like that. So the Family Foundation's immersion, starts in July. We've folks should take my discovery quiz and get on my calendar as soon as possible if you're interested in that before it fills up. So that'd be
Yeah.
the best way for folks to kind of get to know my work is to take the
Awesome.
quiz and just hang with me for a free session. And I can support them with that.
Yeah, yeah, and you
Yeah,
also have an awesome Facebook group and you do
that's
trainings,
right.
and oftentimes there's like videos that are up. I have like binge listened to many of them.
That's right.
I put them on repeat while I'm doing dishes and stuff. And then Vanessa, as you guys probably know, that today my membership site launched and there's going to be I know, yay! I've been working on it for a long time. And part of what I want to offer is amazing people like Vanessa inside the membership where you could bring your actual questions and get, obviously you're not going to get a full realm of parenting coaching, but you can get like those little bits that you're stuck on or just those good habits that you want to instill from like an early age, or kind of like top tips for how to prepare your baby for preschool, even stuff like that, that I think that Vanessa would be amazing to talk about. So yeah, it's anything else you want to add, Vanessa, before we close?
Well, I think like be gentle with yourself. I mean, raising kids is like the most rewarding and the most challenging and the most valuable job on the planet. So, uh, with any big job, with anything that has such a high stakes outcome of
Mhm.
like you're raising a whole human being, like
Yeah.
of course, some things are going to come to you easily and naturally, like with anything, and other things are going to just take some time to learn. And what a blessing, what a boon that people like Sarah exist to help guide folks through the very beginnings of their experience, and all the parent educators out there who are leaning in and really offering tools to parents, because it's not, there are these areas that are just not that easy to figure out on your own, and that's okay.
Sure.
Like we get to be kind to ourselves about that we can't just like figure it all out on our own all the time. We need community. We need
Sure.
like, role models to look up to. We need peers to kind of travel with. And
Yeah.
that's why a lot of folks I know are in here today, is because they realize that it doesn't have to be a solo journey. Like
Yeah.
so single
Yeah.
doesn't mean alone, right? Yeah.
No, yeah, I love that. Yes. And
Yeah.
it's so true. And yeah, I think even like women, other fellow people to like hear that they're having the same struggle, right?
That's
Because it's
yeah.
so hard and you can get in your own little mind and think that your kid is the only kid in the world that does blah, blah, blah. And it's
That's
not
right.
necessarily true. Yeah.
Like I just finished the series and the videos are up for the rest of the day as well in the Raising Our
Oh, great.
Resilience parent group. Um, and so if folks wanted to check that out, it's on Facebook, Raising Our Resilience parent group. If you want to type that in, you'll find it. And what one of the moms said at the end of it, because she was there for most of the 6 trainings, and we did a couple master classes afterward, talking about how to implement what we learned and everything, totally free. I do it a few times a year, so really fun event. And she goes, Vanessa, I learned so much, and I've got all these great goals I'm walking away from, but she's like, you know what I really needed? I needed to hear that other parents are going through the same thing too.
Mm,
And that I wasn't alone. And because we can get into this like, I'm gonna do it myself, I'm gonna figure it all out, I'm gonna, and then we forget that leadership is not just like vertical, it's also horizontal. Like
right.
we all go further together. They say there's this African proverb I love that says, if you want to get somewhere fast, go alone,
Mm,
but if you want to go far, go together.
nice.
And I just love that. It just
Yeah, that's awesome.
it like, I don't know, it gives me little goosebumps. It like just makes sense to me on a really deep level, like, of course. So I'm
Yeah,
so appreciative of all the work that you do, Sarah. Like, you build so much community around the journey that often can really feel lonely. And it's
yeah.
such a special thing that you do. So yeah,
Oh,
thank you
thank
for all
you.
your great work. Yeah,
Awesome. Thank you.
absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. And it was wonderful. I'll put the link to Vanessa's Facebook page in the comments or posts, etc., so you can find it. And thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, good to have everybody here. Bye, Kate and
Bye.
Emrys, Jason. See you later.
Yes, bye.